He's like, yo, I just paid $1,000 to fix this ship. This octopus is like... We got a POV, 16 eyeballs worth of pure horror sci-fi. Baby Yoda's just like... Hey everybody, welcome to Twin Talk, a video discussion show where twin brothers Chris and Kevin drink and draw while talking about comic books, movies, and all things pop culture. We are your hosts, Chris Hart,
Kevin Hart,
and today we're going to be talking about Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 3.
Stick around to the end of the episode to see how our drawing of Bo Katan came out, and if you like what you see, subscribe to the channel for more videos.
So this episode, Episode 3, the Heiress, takes off right where we left off. Frog Lady and the Mando are headed to this planet Trask.
We see the battle-damaged ship from the last episode with the ice spiders. They're cruising around this planet. It looks exactly like Earth.
The Mando ship, the Razor Crest, is in desperate need of repair. This thing is falling apart at the seams.
Dunzo.
Reminds me a lot of my 98 Ford Exploder. Mando and Frog Lady, they're coming in hot. They got to go through the burning atmosphere to land at this port of Trask.
The airport control center is saying, Razor Crest, you got to slow down. They land in the water. This AT-AT crane lifts up the Razor Crest.
Very cool design on the construction vehicle that pulls them out of the port.
I like the integration of Imperial weaponry and vehicles into like a post-Empire world. We see that it's serving a useful purpose now at this point.
I like that this episode opens with a comedic beat of the Razor Crest landing safely, if you will, at the port of Trask, only to crap out and fall into the water. And it's like it's a funny moment, and then the credits roll, Mandalorian, because previous episodes have all been badass moments showcasing the Mando's brutality despite the child being with him. And we see that Frog Lady gets reunited with her husband, which is kind of a touching moment, very emotional. The score is very emotionally driven. It's kind of a beautiful moment, I'm not going to lie. It's definitely a nice payoff to the last episode. The Frog Lady's husband is waiting on this planet. He may have potential information for the Mando to meet his people. He points over to the inn, the little barkeep inn over in the port of Trask.
They make their way through Rhode Island. They go into this inn. We see they're serving up clam chowder.
Octopus oatmeal.
Yeah, Admiral Akbar's sous chef cousin running the joint. He mentions that he might know of a contact that knows of other Mandalorians. So we're continuing with this journey of trying to find people of his race.
Admiral Akbar's hand-me-down cousin then goes to this Quarren species of the bar, this Quarren fisherman / sailor, and he says, we have a Mando over here. He's looking for people of his kind.
Now, I don't know if he was in on it, but he seemed to almost like give a tip on that Beskar steel was making its way through the town. He even mentions he has Beskar or something like that. He's wearing Beskar. We're thinking it's a trap.
We meet these Quarren brother fishermen, sailors, that go over to the Mando's table and they're like, yeah, we could take you to some Mandos. We've seen some people in that Beskar armor. That sweet Beskar armor.
We should know right away this guy's got evil intentions. Even the way he speaks, too, he's like, you looking for badges, right? Something like that. Like, it was like...
He's like, yeah, I'll take it to him. It's definitely the same species from episode 1 of last season. This Quarren species can't be trusted. These Quarren fishermen, it's a bunch of brothers in this episode. They obviously want some Beskar steel. Going into this, though, I trusted them. I truly trusted them. And then we get to this ship that they're on. We get to the middle of the ocean. They're about to feed the mama core. He's like, oh yeah, Baby Yoda, the child, he'll love this. He'll check it out, yeah. So he gets him a little too close to the edge.
We're on an episode of Shark Week. We're out there at sea. He opens up the pit of the middle of the boat, and they drop a whole bunch of space fish into the mama core's den.
This is the Star Wars version of Deadliest Catch, literally. Because we see that the Quarren fishermen, I didn't see this coming at all, dude. I trusted these people. And he says, he's like, we fed the mama core this morning. Boom! Baby Yoda's in the middle of the water. This giant alien shark octopus comes up and eats him.
It was definitely a shocking moment. I personally did not see this coming at all.
I trusted these people, and if anything, all this episode shows me is that don't trust anybody.
This Quarren brother knocks Baby Yoda's orb into the mama core's fish den. We see that, thankfully, at the very last moment, it closes the orb doors. As it gets swallowed.
Hopefully Baby Yoda lives to sell another plushie.
Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, jumps in after the baby. They close the gates and he's trapped. And I was honestly feeling the tension of this moment.
Mando goes full Baywatch, dives right into this little pit. and they trap him in. And like you said, for the first time in this entire series, I actually felt real danger, and I felt they weren't going to make it out of this one because it was looking pretty dicey for a little bit. Enter Bo Katan and these other Mandalorians.
The most badass introduction I've ever seen. I don't know much about the character. We've never deep dived into the animation and shows that everyone's so familiar with and that has become so popular. Clone Wars, Rebels. But this was the most badass introduction I've ever seen.
As soon as she lands, she starts kicking ass, taking names. And the color of the blue on these 3 Mandalorians is gorgeous.
Cosplay fuel. Coming soon to a Comic-Con near you. COVID willing.
So we see this amazing action sequence where Bo Katan and these 2 other Mandalorians, they land on this pirate ship. They start obliterating all of them because they know one of their brothers is in desperate need of their help. We know this because earlier in the episode at the port, we see that Frog Lady's husband, points to these Mandalorians, this mysterious figure hiding in the port.
Din Djarin was looking for people of his kind, but they clearly had tabs on him. They knew who he was right away. They followed him out to sea. I like the whole feel of them protecting their own.
It's like a brotherhood of Mandalorians. It's very familial togetherness. I appreciated that aspect of it.
It almost felt like a older brother or sister, because we see the women taking charge here. They were sticking up for their younger brother.
So we see these Mandos show up. They come to the aid of the Mando. He's shot. He's not even willing to go help Baby Yoda because he's just like, the child, go help the child. Casca Reeves, she goes, nose dives into the cage, saves Baby Yoda from this mama core.
Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian is saved by these other Mandalorians. They make their introductions. Bo Katan, Casca Reeves, and what was the other guy's name?
I think his name was like Axe Wove or something like that.
They remove their helmets, though, so we see that there's a conflict of ideals between these Mandalorians. We see that there's almost like an old belief system and a new belief system.
They take their helmets off, which in the previous episode of the Marshal, once the Marshal took his helmet off, he knew immediately he wasn't a Mandalorian. So these guys, these 3 that saved his life, they took off their helmets immediately, and he's just like, where'd you get that armor?
He's doubting that they're true Mandalorians, but they go into an explanation of the fact that there's this almost like different factions of the belief system of the Mandalorian culture, of the Children of the Watch.
Death Watch, yep, they are the extremist group, which Din Djarin is part of. And we see that Bo Katan is the leader of this other group.
At first, me not knowing too much about these characters, they almost seemed like a sinister presence to the Mandalorian. To me, it felt like a bad influence, drawing him to like a different way of Mandalore. Mandalorian refuses their beliefs, and he says that there is only one way. He flies off, he ghosts them, he goes back to port. Then we see his viewpoint of the boat, where all these other Mandalorians take off and they just completely blow up the
They
ship.
just destroy this thing.
Sink it to the bottom.
Once they do their mission, they just explode this thing. No commerce is even considered.
Later that night, back on port, we see that Quarren's brother, he's coming up to the Mandalorian like, you kill my brother, prepare to die. He goes Princess Bride on him, and then we see these other Mandalorians come back. They say one of the coolest lines I've heard. Actually, there's a lot of cool lines in this episode. They say, oh, he didn't kill your brother, I did. Guns are blazing.
They just obliterate everybody and they're like, let's hit the bar. Let's go drink. At the bar later that night, we see Bo Katan. She starts telling the Mando of this mission she wants to go on at the port of Trask, where these Imperial loyalists are taking, I guess, pieces of their planet, Mandalore, and selling it or whatever. They're gaining profit from it. She wants to go and take whatever's on this ferry, this Imperial ship, and use it for herself. For the fans of Clone Wars and all the animated series, we know that Bo Katan is the heir of the Mandalorian people. She wants to reclaim that city. We know that she's looking for the Darksaber to do it. The Darksaber being their Excalibur.
The Heiress, as the title's called. As Bo Katan and crew are telling Mando about their plan to take over this Empire ship, we see Casca Reeves with, I think, the sexiest slurp of this octopus. Was anyone else turned down by that, or was it just me?
It was all practical, baby.
Mando agrees to go on this mission with Bo Katan. He leaves Baby Yoda with Frog Lady and her husband. It's a funny line that he says, mind your manners, you know what I'm talking about, before he slurps down any more of this woman's children. I like to, as they're scouting this mission, this ship, they're talking about the stormtroopers. And I like that what the one guy says. He's he's like, they could miss the side of a bantha.
Yeah,
he's not wrong.
Yeah, they couldn't even hit a bantha. Bantha's being humongous. We know that stormtroopers, not the best aim in all of science fiction. Mandalorian agrees to go on this mission with Bo Katan and her Mandalorians because they can bring him to a Jedi that can reunite Baby Yoda with his species or his kind.
The Empire ship's taking off. We see all these Mandalorians jetpacking to him. Ludwig Göransson's score is really keeping up with the tension of the scene. It's like... They hijack this ship. They're taking out stormtroopers off the bridge.
The Mandalorians go full-on Batman Arkham Asylum style. They start landing behind these stormtroopers, taking them down, silent takedowns. We have an amazing action sequence when these Mandalorians break into the Imperial cargo ship. Bo Katan, she's got this like razor knife vibro blade attached to her arm.
Assassin's Creed style.
She's just wiping stormtroopers out left and right. No blood. Disney. They can't leave the atmosphere apparently until they get on this like runway to take the cargo ship. So the main Imperial leader of this ship is just like, you got to hold them off until we hit the atmosphere.
The stormtroopers and this commander, they decide to hold off the Mandalorians. Once the doors open, they're second guessing themselves. At first, he's all badass. He's like, we will hold them off. As soon as he sees the Mandalorians, he's like, close the doors. Close all the doors.
He tries to capture them in this cargo bay. And we know that that's a mistake because this guy gets sucked into a vortex of just pure death.
They go Ripley from Alien on him, empties him at the cargo bay. The stormtroopers are lighting him up.
Mando goes full-on quarterback sneak with these thermal detonators. He's just absorbing, eating everything for breakfast.
Before the Mandalorians reach the cockpit, we see our first appearance of Moff Gideon this season. Basically, he says, if the Mandalorians have breached this much of the ship, there's nothing they can do. Long live the Empire.
We go full on execute Order 66 at this point. The Imperial Loyalist captain at this point just starts like, he just starts driving the ship. He's just like, yo, we're going in the sea. But they start taking this thing straight down into the depths of Seattle, wherever they are. They take this thing into the port of Trask. They're just going to wipe out. This Imperial captain realizes, game over, man. Moff Gideon gives him the order. He knows that they're done. These Mandos took control of this ship. And he just starts motorboating in the air. Just kills these dudes, murders these two captains, takes the ship down.
So he's heading straight for the water. We see the Mandalorians, they take over the cockpit. And he doesn't put up much of a fight after that, actually. He kind of just like, they just take him. Koska Reeves and Din Djarin start climbing this Imperial starship back up. Bo Katan takes this Imperial officer and she starts saying, where is it? Does he have it? And I kind of like another badass line of this episode is, if you're asking, you already know. She's obviously looking for the Darksaber, a reference to last season of Moff Gideon and the Clone Wars. Like I said before, I thought that Bo Katan and her crew, they kind of seemed like this bad influence to the Mandalorian at first. But we see towards the end of the episode that there's a bigger threat at large looming. And we kind of understand her reasonings for being so hardcore. Bo Katan is threatening the life of this Imperial officer. We see that he's clearly more afraid of Moff Gideon than her. He chomps down on this like electric cyanide pill.
This pilot eats the dust. They end up landing this Imperial ferry back at port. Bo Katan tells the Mandalorian, thank you for your bravery. They end up parting ways. She says, if you ever want to join us, you're more than welcome. But here's the whereabouts of the Jedi. Ahsoka.
We get our first mention of Ahsoka Tano,
which we know is going to be played by Rosario Dawson. Fans, I'm sure, are overwhelmed with joy. Mando goes back to port. He reunites with Baby Yoda, who's been staying at Frog Lady and Frog Lady's husband's place. They gave birth to their first frog child. They're both just staring at it like, oh my God, it's so good. Adios mio. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And he's just like, Baby Yoda, let's go. We're getting out of here. Time to go. Don't eat that thing. That's a life form.
I love the use of practical effects during the show, but definitely that was noticeable of the like bath toy frog child.
Frog Lady and Frog Lady's husband is just, the baby's just like, it's just clearly on strings. And they couldn't spend, what did they spend, $5 on that thing? They went to Dollar Tree. Nothing practical or CGI about it. This thing was just crapped out by Jon Favreau, and they put it on screen.
Mando arrives back at port. He goes back to Admiral Akbar's cousin, which we saw in the beginning of the episode. He tells him, I paid you 1,000 credits. This is what my ship looks like.
In typical mechanic fashion, he gives him 1,000 credits. God knows what that means in US dollars. And this ship is held together by literally
fishnets. They get back on the ship. They're ready to end this adventure. We see what looks like Calvin from Life.
Horrifying.
I thought something more was going to happen with this scene, though. It was kind of like...
He's like, yo, I just paid $1,000 to fix this ship. This octopus is like... We got a POV... 16 eyeballs worth of pure horror sci-fi. Baby Yoda's just like, ah! All of a sudden, Mando just grabs this thing. He's like, swipes him up. Swiping, no swiping. Kills this thing, obliterates it, feeds it to Baby Yoda.
They take off in light speed. We see pieces of the Razor Crest flying off.
parts are falling off his ship. We need a new ship at this point.
So, Chris, what did you think of this episode, The Heiress?
I thought overall the visuals were stunning. I think this was the strongest episode of the last 2 seasons. It was the most Star Wars-y, if that's a term. But I really appreciated the fact that we got to see an Imperial officer / deck operating within a port instead of like being in deep space. We've been used to seeing all of the Empire within like deep space and black stars and everything in the background. That this episode was fresh to see them in like kind of like daylight, see how they operate in this Star Wars universe, and I appreciated that. I loved that.
Credit goes to Bryce Dallas Howard. She directed, I think, one of the better episodes of season 1, and she returns with an amazing episode of season 2, the best so far that we've seen.
Who knew that the chick in Jurassic World running away in heels from a T-Rex would be able to direct such cinematic, beautiful episodes of Star Wars lore?
I don't know much about the Clone Wars, but I like the whole vibe of Bo Katan and her crew, mostly women, kicking ass.
It's my personal favorite episode so far of the entire series. It was visually stunning, gorgeous cinematography, great colors, great character designs, great costumes. I like the stakes of the episode. I love the Empire. It just felt very Star Wars to me, and I appreciated this episode. It's definitely my favorite so far.
Anyways, that about wraps up today's episode of Twin Talk. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, comment below to join the discussion, and subscribe to the channel for more content. We'll see you next time. Peace!